Now let's learn how to make the back piece. Use the right-handed long tail cast-on method and work back and forth. It is also divided into the hem, the body, and the chest piece. The hem and body knitting are similar to the corresponding position of the front piece. The pattern is roughly symmetrical to the front piece. The technique is identical. For the chest piece, continue decreasing stitches on both sides, then work even. Continue knitting until you finish the row before the short rows on the shoulder. On the next row, start the short rows from the right side. Here, I'll give a brief explanation of the knitting sequence. After completing the short rows on the right side, knit back and forth for the right shoulder part. Decrease stitches at the neckline. Continue working short rows along the edge to form the sloping shoulder. Finally, join and bind off the corresponding shoulder part with the front piece. Then, attach yarn at the right side of the neck opening. Bind off stitches around the neckline. Then knit back and forth for the left shoulder. Similarly, decrease stitches on one side of the neckline. Start working short rows along the edge. Finally, join and bind off the corresponding shoulder part with the front piece as well. The specific short row technique and the method for decreasing at the neckline are similar to the corresponding positions on the back piece. You can refer to the previous demonstration to complete it. For the specific method of joining and binding off, please refer to the video demonstration below. The first method is stitch-to-stitch connection. This situation occurs when both pieces are in the loop state. One of the more commonly used joining methods is to join the pieces together by binding off stitches together. It's usually applied to connect the shoulders of the front and back pieces. Both fabric pieces are in the loop state. We will consider the stitching stitch side as the right side. Merging and binding off is usually done on the wrong side of the piece. That means you need to place the two pieces with their right sides facing each other. Usually, one of the pieces remains unbroken with the yarn still attached. No matter which piece the yarn is on, place the side with the yarn tail on the right. When doing the merge bind off, all of them are binding off while knitting the stitches. That means go through both loops from the two pieces at the same time. Knit, stitch and bind off as you work. The stitch count of the two pieces is usually identical. Just knit into each stitch correspondingly and bind off. If one piece has more stitches than the other, you'll need to decrease while binding off on the side with more stitches. If this piece has more stitches, you can insert your hook into two loops at once, and then continue by inserting into one loop. Knit, stitch to bind off. If the back piece has more stitches, insert your hook into back two loops at the same time, and knit, stitch to bind off. In my case, both pieces have the same stitch count. I'll continue binding them off. Tie off the yarn tail and hide it. This is the result after merging and binding off. After completing the shoulder merge and bind off, sew together the sides of the body and hem for the front and back pieces. Follow the row-to-row joining method. For detailed instructions, please refer to the video demonstration below. Now let's learn how to connect row to row. We usually use an invisible sewing technique. When sewing, pick up the horizontal strands of the edge 2 stitches. Let's first take a look at the fabric piece. First, locate the first stitch on the edge. The first stitch on the edge usually has 4 different cases. The first case is a slip stitch. That is, pick it along the texture without knitting, forming a large braid. The second case is also a slip stitch. But when doing the slip stitch, it goes against the texture below, creating a knot like this. The third case involves knitting every row. Usually, knit on the right side, and purl on the wrong side, forming small braids like these. The fourth case also involves knitting every row, but both sides are knitted, creating a garter stitch pattern. The left side of the first stitch is the second stitch. For example, this piece of fabric, when viewed from this side, shows the knit texture of the second stitch. When looking from the other side, the second stitch is a purl texture. Regardless of whether the second stitch shows a knit texture or a purl texture, you can notice that the loops are always facing forward. For these reversed loops, the horizontal line below is the horizontal strand between 2 stitches. The same applies to this side as well. This is the reversed loop. This strand here is the horizontal strand between 2 stitches. The same goes for the edge when knitting a garter stitch. This one here is the second stitch. This entire column is the right side loop of the second stitch. Between these 2 stitches, where the loop is reversed, this line here is the horizontal strand between the 2 stitches. The edge is a slip stitch. Similarly, between these 2 stitches, there are also horizontal strands. No matter which kind, one carried strand roughly corresponds to one row. Before sewing together, you can first weave in the yarn tails on the wrong side, and tie a knot to secure them. I won't hide the yarn here. For seamless sewing, alternate between the two fabric pieces each time. Picking up the horizontal strand of 2 stitches on the edge, and sew them together. Pick up 1 to 2 strands each time. Note that, if the row counts of the 2 pieces match, you can sew them together correspondingly. This means picking up the same amount of strands each time. Always insert the sewing needle from where you last pulled out. Let's pick up the horizontal strand. Here, I'm picking up 1 strand each time. After sewing a few stitches, slightly tighten it. If the 2 pieces have different row counts, but you want to sew them evenly together, you can pick up more strands on the side with more rows. For example, in general, pick up 1 strand each time. On the side with more rows, you can, at appropriate positions, pick up 2 strands. Here, the 2 pieces have identical row counts. I'll continue and finish sewing. This is the seamless sewing for rows method. Up to this point, the tutorial for the back piece is complete. Next, let's learn about the sleeves. Here it's divided into the left sleeve and the right sleeve. The pattern is slightly different. Both are divided into the cuff, the sleeve body, and the sleeve cap. For the sleeve cuff, use the right-handed long tail cast-on method. Knit back and forth in 1 times 1 rib stitch. The technique is similar to how the hem begins. Pay attention, both the beginning and ending stitches are knit stitches. Everyone complete this part. Then move on to knitting the sleeve body. You will need to increase stitches during the knitting process. The new stitches used are right lifted increase and left lifted increase. Please watch as I demonstrate the specific knitting method. Here, I'll use a sample swatch for the demonstration. For the first row of the sleeve body, start by joining the yarn. Then knit using color 1. and increase stitches at the corresponding position. This sample demonstrates the large size as an example. First, knit 3 stitches. Then do 1 left lifted increase. Below is the knit stitch texture. First, insert and knit 1 stitch. Then pick the second braid from the left below. Knit 1 stitch. The left lifted increase at the knit stitch position is now complete. Continue knitting 4 more knit stitches. At the purl stitch position, knit 1 left lifted increase. First, pick the loop and knit 1 stitch. Then pick up the horizontal line below and knit 1 stitch. The left lifted increase at the purl stitch position is now complete. Continue knitting 3 more knit stitches. Switch colors and knit 1 left lifted increase. Continue knitting 4 more knit stitches. The next stitch is a left lifted increase worked with 2 colors. First, insert into the current loop and knit 1 stitch. Then switch colors. Pick up the second braid from below, and knit 1 stitch. Make sure to push the yarn all the way down. This completes the left lifted increase. Continue following the chart for the rest of the pattern. The stitch techniques are random in this part of the sample. After completing, check the stitch count. That concludes the explanation for row 1. Continue working back and forth in the pattern, and increase on the second stitch at the beginning and end of the corresponding row numbers. You will encounter the right lifted increase technique. Here, I'll demonstrate the method using a sample swatch. First, pick up 1 strand from the braid below the loop and knit 1 stitch. Then, insert into the loop and knit 1 more stitch. The right lifted increase is now complete. Follow this method whenever you encounter a right lifted increase going forward. Up to this point, the explanation for knitting the sleeve body is complete. Finally, knit the sleeve cap. Continue working back and forth from the sleeve body. Decrease on both sides. The method is similar to the decrease used under the arms of the front piece. Lastly, bind off stitches. For specific binding off methods, refer to the demonstration in the video below. Bind off while knitting the stitches. Usually, after finishing the stitching stitch, you can use this method on the right side. In this situation, when binding off, start by knitting 2 knit stitches. Then, pick up the first stitch with the left needle and place it over the second stitch. That's how you bind off one stitch. Continue with one more knit stitch. Then, pick up the first stitch again with the left needle and place it over the second stitch. That's how you bind off another stitch. I'll continue binding them all off. Each time, you bind off by knitting stitches. Now there is only one loop left. Enlarge the loop. Then leave a tail and fasten off the yarn. The length of the yarn tail depends on the specific situation of the fabric. Usually, leaving about 10 centimeters is enough. Pass the yarn tail through the loop. Pull tight. This is the method for binding off while knitting the stitches. No matter which binding off method you use, the method for securing the tail end can refer to the demonstration here, and after everything is completely finished, if there's no specific need to leave a long tail for sewing, these short tails can be woven in on the wrong side following the fabric texture. Tuck them in. Try not to affect the right side texture as much as possible. When weaving in the ends, you can weave in the entire tail. After the sleeve cap is finished, next sew together the side seams of the sleeve body and the cuff. The method is identical to the technique used for sewing the side seams of the front and back pieces with the body and hem. Please complete this step. Finally, attach the sleeve cap to the armhole positions of the front and back pieces. Match up the underarm sewing position. Correspond the middle of the sleeve cap to the shoulder connection position. Secure multiple points along the edges using stitch markers. Sew together according to the stitch and row method. For specific sewing methods, please refer to the demonstration in the video below. If the stitches are in a bound-off state, they need to be sewn together with the rows. On the stitch side, pick up the reversed braid. On the row side, pick up the horizontal strand. And, if the number of rows exceeds the number of stitches, Adjust accordingly based on the situation. At the appropriate position, pick up 2 horizontal strands at the same time. If you don't need to sew a braid effect, just tighten the yarn. That concludes the explanation of the sleeves. Next, let's learn about the collar. Pick up stitches around the neckline of the front and back pieces, and knit 1 times 1 rib in a circle. Start by picking up the stitches. The exact number of stitches to pick up can be referenced from the chart. You can also adjust according to your needs. Pay attention that the number of picked up stitches should be a multiple of 2. After picking up the stitches, knit 1 times 1 rib in a circle. Finally, finish with 1 times 1 rib bind off. For the specific knitting method, please refer to the video demonstration below. After learning the technique, follow the pattern to knit. Start by picking up and knitting the first round. I will demonstrate using this small sample. We start picking up stitches from the back piece. You can see, the back piece is usually divided into 3 sections, the 2 sides and the middle section. Before picking up and knitting, you can first, according to the requirements on the chart, distribute the total number of picked up stitches on the back piece into these 3 sections. Usually, the middle part picks up stitches in sequence. The remaining stitches can be evenly divided between the 2 sides. For example, if I need to pick up a total of 21 stitches on this back piece, then pick up 11 stitches in sequence in the middle. These 11 stitches are usually the number of stitches for bind off in the middle. The remaining stitches can be evenly picked up with 5 stitches on each of the 2 sides. For this round of picking up stitches, knit all stitches. For such edges, pick up a few strands along the edge. Pay attention to keep it roughly even. Here, I use different colored yarns to demonstrate, making it more convenient for watching. After picking up the side edges, pick up 11 stitches in the middle, corresponding 1 by 1. Once completed, for this side edge, continue to pick up 5 stitches evenly. After completion, reach the front piece position. The total number of stitches picked up on the front piece should also be distributed across these 3 sections. For example, if I need to pick up a total of 39 stitches on this front piece, in the middle here, I bound off 7 stitches. Therefore, I picked up 16 stitches on each side. Just roughly distribute them evenly. After picking up all the stitches, check the number of stitches, then distribute them evenly across 3 straight needles. That concludes picking up stitches for the first round. Next, knit the second round. Starting from this round, you'll be knitting 1 times 1 rib pattern. That is, alternately knit 1 stitch and purl 1 stitch. Whether to start with a knit or purl stitch for the first stitch, just follow the chart. Make the first stitch slightly tighter. Note: every time you switch needles, make sure to knit the first loop a bit tighter. This prevents noticeable needle switch marks. Continue alternating between knit and purl stitches. Finish knitting this round. That is, finish all the loops on the third needle. Here, I started with a knit stitch. The last stitch perfectly ends with a purl stitch. Now I've finished the second round. Starting from the third round, for every following round, you can knit 1 times 1 rib based on the texture underneath. That is, if you see a braid below, knit a stitch. If you see a horizontal line below, purl a stitch. Braid means knit stitch. Horizontal line means purl stitch. Continue with this method until all remaining rounds are finished. I've skipped some rounds here. After everything is completed, proceed with 1 times 1 rib bind off. First, knit 2 stitches opposite to the texture underneath. Here, the first stitch below is a braid, and the second stitch below is a horizontal line. So start with a purl stitch, then knit a stitch. Then pass the previous stitch over the next one. This way, 1 stitch is decreased. Continue with another stitch opposite to the texture underneath. Here it's a braid, so you should knit a purl stitch. Before knitting, use your left hand to pinch the bottom of the yarn loop on the right needle. Take the needle out. Place it below the yarn and reinsert it back into the loop. Then knit the purl stitch. Pass the previous stitch over the next one. This way, 1 stitch is decreased again. Continue with a stitch that's opposite to the texture below. Here we have a horizontal bar, so you should knit a knit stitch. Before knitting, take the needle out, place it above the yarn, and reinsert it back into the loop. Knit a knit stitch. Then pass the previous stitch over the next one. This way, you've decreased one stitch. Every time, you need to knit a stitch that's opposite to the texture below, and before knitting, you need to change the position of the yarn by moving the right needle. When knitting a purl stitch, the yarn stays above. When knitting a knit stitch, the yarn stays below. Let's continue to bind them off. When only one loop is left, leave the yarn tail slightly longer. Secure the loop. Finally, you can use this yarn tail to sew the beginning and ending together. Ensure there are no noticeable notches. That concludes the explanation of the collar. Lastly, let's learn about decorations. These include lines and beads. The lines are divided into dotted lines like these. And branch textures like these. The dotted lines are embroidered using the straight stitch method. The branches are embroidered using the outline stitch method. Apart from the color blocks fully embroidered with beads, the other color blocks have different corresponding lines. You can refer to the finished product, or you can freely embroider based on your preference. Please watch as I demonstrate the specific embroidery method. Here, I'll use a small sample for the demonstration. There's no color block. Pay attention to the demonstration method. Start by embroidering the dotted line. Take the yarn, insert it into the sewing needle. Fold it in half and tie a knot at the tail. Exit to the right side. The segment length should be about 1 to 1.5 centimeters. Pass through the loop on the wrong side. Adjust the tension properly. Embroider in one direction. Continue to embroider the next column. The segments of the two columns can be slightly staggered. Everyone can embroider according to your own preference. Finally, tie a knot and weave in the yarn tail on the wrong side. Try not to let any visible stitches show on the right side. That's it for the explanation of the dashed line embroidery technique. Now let's move on to embroidering the branches. Start with the trunk. You can leave a little yarn tail at the beginning. This makes it more convenient to weave in the ends later. Each time, exit a little above the middle on the left side of the previous stitch. When you encounter a fork position, embroider the fork. The specific shape of the fork here is as follows. You can refer to the chart, or embroider according to your own preference. Then carry the yarn across from the wrong side. Yarn over and go back to the trunk position. Continue embroidering. If the yarn runs out halfway, tie a knot on the wrong side, and weave in the ends. Then take a new thread and continue embroidering. Make sure to hide the starting tail on the wrong side. Everyone, follow this method. Embroider the sections on the front and back pieces, as well as the sleeves that need to be embroidered. Finally, secure the beads, mainly on the front piece in these 3 color block areas. And the color block at the very bottom of this position on the back piece. Beads spaced about 2 centimeters apart, arranged vertically. Random colors. Use small beads for embroidering. Do the same for this part on the back piece. The middle color blocks are mainly distributed on both sides of the upper arc. This color block on the left side, with beads placed at the end of the branch. Include a few large beads among them. Below, I will demonstrate the embroidery method using this as an example. Use the colors corresponding to the color block to secure the beads. Fold one thread in half. You can first secure the thread on the wrong side. Then bring it to the right side to secure the bead. The specific placement of the beads is random. Try to place the large beads at the end of the branches. After embroidering, tie a knot on the backside and weave in the ends. Everyone should finish embroidering all the beads. Pay attention that small beads should not be too dense, to prevent running out. That concludes the explanation of the decorations. Up to this point, the entire piece of clothing has been fully explained. If you have any questions during the process, don't hesitate to reach us via our website, Susan's Family, supporting your handwork experience, sharing the joy of life. Thank you all for watching. See you in the next episode.